Hey Rooted, how are you all doing? Welcome to today's instalment of uh, uh, 50 Reasons Why Jesus Came to Die. This one is number 17, and it is to obtain for us all things that are good for us. The passage we're going to be looking at is Romans 8, verse 32, and it says this: He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? Now, it seems complicated, so let's break it down. So, this passage basically split into two halves, and they actually do have a logical connection. That might be hard to see because the first half of the passage is different to the second half. The second half is a question, but if we change that question into a statement, then we see this: He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, will therefore surely also graciously give us all things. So in essence, the connection between the two halves of the verse is to make the second half of it absolutely certain in its point. Surely, if God is able to do the hardest thing of all, to do the hardest thing in the world, to give up his own son to suffering and to death, then he could definitely be able to do the comparatively easy thing, I guess, which is to give us all things. But what does that actually mean? What does giving us all things actually mean? Well, it's important to see it doesn't mean an easy life of comfort. It doesn't even mean safety from our enemies. We know this as it says 4 verses later: For your sake we are being killed all the day long. We are regarded sheep for the slaughter. If those things aren't the good things that God is giving us, then what is he talking about here? What are the good things that he's giving us all? Well, he means that he's going to give us all the things that are actually helpful for us, that are actually good for us, and that they're all the things that we need so that we can then conform our lives to be more and more like Christ, and so that we can then attain everlasting joy. This passage is saying that we can do all things for Christ. And it's important to see that all things actually include stuff like hungering and needing. Now, you might be thinking, Matt, hungering and needing don't sound like things that we really want, don't sound that desirable or stuff we should be rejoicing about. I mean, I definitely know I don't like being hungry. When I am hungry, I usually get quite angry or frustrated. And so why are these good things? Why is that something that God is giving us? Why is that something that we can rejoice about? Well, the way I see it is that God creates hunger and need in our hearts so that we can then conform ourselves more and more like Christ and to be more like Christ in his image. So I always found it when I was at university, when I missed student Bible study 1 week, or for some reason I wasn't at church on a Sunday, I always felt quite empty that week, I guess. And that there was something missing in my heart that week. Well, that's me hungering for God's word. I have that feeling because I'm left hungry because I haven't been fed his word that week or for a specific amount of time. And that's why that's clearly a good thing that God is doing in me and doing in us, because it means that we then want to come back to him and come back to his word, and we should rejoice for that, and we should rejoice because of that. So the death of his son in this passage guarantees that God will give us all things that we need to do his will, and we should rejoice in that. Thank you for listening today. I hope you found that helpful. See you later, everyone. Have a nice evening.